Welcome to another Storytime Quickies. We're going to be doing a double feature tonight of the Grimm's Complete Fairy Tales. I missed out on yesterday's, so I owe you guys two stories tonight. Dos. So tonight's stories are going to be The Three Spinners and Hansel and Gretel. Ooh. Oh my god, Hansel and Gretel. It's actually kind of long. Okay. So it's gonna be a super short stream. I have to get to the movies really soon and I still gotta pump gas, so let's see if I can make it in time. Hopefully we can finish this in like 20 minutes. Ooh. Okay, here we go. Speed run, speed reading. Okay. The Three Spinners. There was once a girl who was idle and would not spin, and let her mother try as she might, she could not bring her to it. At last, the mother was so overcome with anger and impatience that she beat her, on which the girl began to weep loudly. Now, at this very moment, the queen drove by, and when she heard the weeping, she stopped her carriage, went into the house, and asked the mother why she was beating her daughter, so that the cries could be heard out on the road. Then the woman was ashamed to reveal the laziness of her daughter, and said, I cannot get her to quit spinning. She insists on spinning forever and ever, and I am poor, and cannot procure the flax. Ah! Oh, whew. Okay. Then answered the queen, there's nothing that I like better than the sound of spinning, and I am never happier than when the wheels are humming. Let me have your daughter with me in the palace. I have flax enough, and there she shall spin as much as she likes. The mother was heartily satisfied with this, and the queen took the girl with her. When they had arrived at the palace, she led her up into the three rooms, which were filled from the bottom to the top with the finest flax. Now spin me this flax, said she, and when you have done it, you shall have my eldest son for a husband. Even if you are poor, I do not care about that, for you are an industrious worker. The girl was secretly terrified, for she could not have spun the flax. No, not if she had lived till she was 300 years old, and had sat at it every day from morning till night. When she was alone, she began to weep, and sat thus for 3 days without moving a finger. On the third day came the queen, and when she saw nothing had been spun yet, she was surprised. But the girl excused herself by saying that she had not been able to begin because of her great distress about after leaving her mother's house. The queen was satisfied with this, but said when she was going away, tomorrow you must begin to work. When the girl was alone again, she did not know what to do, and in her distress went to the window. Then she saw three women coming towards her, the first of whom was a broad flat had a broad flat foot. The second had such a great underlip that it hung down over her chin, and the third had a broad thumb. They remained standing before the window, looked up, and asked the girl what was amiss with her. She complained of her trouble, and then they offered her their help and said, if you will invite us to the wedding, and not be ashamed of us, you will call us your aunts, and likewise will place us at your table. We will spin up the flax for you, and that in a very short time. With all my heart, she replied. Come in and begin the work at once. Then she let in the three strange women and cleared a place for the first in the first room, where they seated themselves and began their spinning. The one drew the thread and trod the wheel. The other wetted the thread. Weeded. Wetted? The third twisted it and struck the table with her finger, and as often as she struck it, a skein of thread fell to the ground that was spun into the finest manner possible. The girl concealed the three spinners from the queen, and showed her whenever she came the great quantity of spun thread. until the later could not praise her enough. When the first room was empty, she went to the second, and at last to the third, and that too was quickly cleared. Then the three women took leave and said to the girl, "Do not forget what you have promised us. It will make your fortune." When the maiden showed the queen the empty room and the great heap of yarn, she gave orders for the wedding, and the bridegroom rejoiced that he was to have such a clever and industrious wife, and praised her mightily. "I have three aunts," said the girl, "and as they have been very kind to me, I should not like to forget them in my good fortune. Allow me to invite them to the wedding, and let them sit with us at table." The queen and the bridegroom said, "Why should we not allow that?" Therefore, when the feast began, the three women entered in strange apparel, and the bride said, "Welcome, dear aunts." "Ah," said the bridegroom, "who ever did you get such odious friends?" "Oh, however did you ever get such odious friends?" He went to the one with the broad, flat foot and said, "How do you come by such a broad foot?" By treading," she answered, "by treading." Then the bridegroom went to the second and said, "How do you come by your falling lip?" "By licking," she answered, "by licking." Then he asked the third, "How do you come by your broad thumb?" "By twisting the thread," he answered, "by twisting the thread." At this the king's son was alarmed and said, "Neither now nor ever shall my beautiful bride touch a spinning wheel." And thus she got rid of the hateful flaxman. And that's the end of the story. Oh, interesting. Uh, so that's how she got her good fortune from the aunts. Oh, cool. Okay. I like that story. That was pretty good. All right. Now, tale number 15. Hansel and Gretel, the classic. You may have already heard of this tale before, and you're going to hear it again tonight. This is a very short story, and it looks like it's already 9:07 at this point, so I'm going to try and rush through this. I'll try my best, but do not expect any voices. Near a great forest dwelt a poor woodcutter with his wife and his two children. The boy was called Hansel, the girl Gretel. He had little to bite and to break, and when great scarcity fell on the land, he could no longer procure daily bread. Now, when he thought over this at night in his bed and tossed about in his anxiety, he groaned and said to his wife, "What is to become of us? How are we to feed our poor children when we are no longer when we no longer have anything for ourselves?" "I'll tell you what, husband," answered the woman. "Early tomorrow morning we will take the children out into the forest, where it is the thickest. There we will light a give of them one piece of bread, and then when we will go to our work and leave them alone, they will not find the way home again. We shall be rid of them." "No, wife," said the man, "I will not do that. How can I bear to leave my children alone in the forest? The wild animals would soon come and tear them to pieces." "Oh, you fools," said she, "then we must all four die of hunger. You may as well plane the planks of our coffin." And she left him no peace until he consented. "But I feel very sorry for the poor children, all the same," said the man. The two children had also not been able to sleep for hunger, and had heard what their stepmother had said to their father. Gretel wept bitter and said to Hansel, "Now all is over for us." "Hush, Gretel," said Hansel. "Do not distress yourself. I will soon find a way to help us." And when the old folks had fallen asleep, he got up and put his little coat, opened the door below, and crept outside. The moon shone brightly, and the white pebbles which lay in front of the house glittered like real silver pennies. Hansel stooped and put as many of them in his little pocket in his coat, and he could possibly get. Then he went back and said to Gretel, "Be comforted, dear little sister, and sleep in peace. God will not forsake us." And he lay down again in his bed. When day dawned, but before the sun had risen, the woman came and awoke the two children, saying, "Get up, you sluggards! We are going into the forest to fetch wood." He gave each a little piece of bread, and said, "There is something for you. There is something for your dinner, but do not eat it up before then, or you will get nothing." Gretel took the bread upon her apron, as Hansel had the stones in his pocket. Then they all set out together on the way to the forest. When they had walked a short time, Hansel stood still, peeped back at the house, and did so again and again. His father said, "Hansel, what are you looking at there and staying behind for? Mind yourself, and do not forget how to use your legs." "Ah, father," said Hansel, "I am looking at my little white cat, which is sitting up on the roof and wants to say goodbye to me." The wife said, "Fool, that is not your little cat. That is the morning sun which is shining on the chimney." Hansel, however, had not been looking back at the cat, but had been constantly throwing one of the white pebble stones out of his pocket on the road. When they had reached the middle of the forest, the father said, "Now, children, pile up some wood, and I will light a fire that you may not be cold." Hansel and Gretel gathered brushwood together as high as a little hill. The brushwood was lighted, and when the flames were burning very high, the woman said, "Now, children, lay yourselves down by the fire and rest. We will go into the forest and cut some wood. When we have done, we will come back and fetch you away." Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire, and when noon came, each ate a little piece of bread. And as they heard the strokes of the wood axe, they believed that their father was near. It was not, however, the axe. It was a branch which he had fastened to a withered tree, which the wind was blowing backward, forward. As they had been sitting such a long time, their eyes shut with fatigue, they fell fast asleep. When at last they awoke, it was already dark night. Gretel began to cry and said, "How are we going to get out of the forest now?" But Hansel comforted her and said, "Just wait a little until the moon has risen, and then we will soon find a way." And when the full moon was risen, Hansel took his little sister by the hand and followed the pebbles which shone like newly coined silver pieces, showed them the way. They walked the whole night long, and by break day came once more to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the woman opened it and saw it was Hansel and Gretel, she said, "You naughty children, why have you slept so long in the forest? We thought you were never coming back at all." The father, however, rejoiced, for it had cut him to the heart to leave them behind alone. Not long afterwards, there was once more great scarcity in all parts, and the children heard their mother saying at night to their father, "Everything is eaten again. We have one half loaf left, and after that there is no more. The children must go. We will take them further into the forest, so that they will not find their way out again. There's no other means of saving ourselves." The man's heart was heavy, and he thought, "It would be better for you to share the last mouthful with your children." The woman, however, would not listen to nothing he had to say, but scolded and reproached him. He who says A must say B likewise, and as he had yielded the first time, he had to do so a second time also. The children were, however, still awake and had heard the conversation. When the old folks were asleep, Hansel again got up and wanted to go out and pick up pebbles as he had done before. When the woman had locked, but the woman had locked the door, and Hansel could not get out. Nevertheless, he comforted with his little sister and said, "Do not cry, Gretel. Go to sleep quietly. The good God will help us." Early in the morning came the woman and took the children out of their beds. Their bit of bread was given to them, but it was still smaller than the time before. On the way into the forest, Hansel rumbled in his pocket, and often stood still and threw a morsel on the ground. Hansel, why do you stop and look round? Said the father. Go on. I am looking back at my little pigeon, which is sitting on the roof, and wants to say good-bye to me, answered Hansel. Simpleton, said the woman, that is not your little pigeon. That is the morning sun that is shining on the chimney. Hansel, however, little by little threw all the crumbs on the path. The woman led the children still deeper into the forest, where they had never in their lives been before. Then a great fire was again made, and the mother said, just sit there, you children, and when you are tired you may sleep a little. We are going into the forest to cut wood, and in the evening, when we are done, we will come and fetch you away. When it was noon, Gretel shared her piece of bread with Hansel, who had scattered his by the way. Then they fell asleep, and evening came and went, but no one came to the poor children. They did not awake until it was dark night, and Hansel comforted his little sister and said, just wait, Gretel, until the moon rises, and then we shall see the crumbs of bread which I have strewn about. They will soon they will show us the way home again. When the moon came, they set out, but they found no crumbs, for the many thousands of birds which sat about in the woods and the fields had picked them all up. Hansel said to Gretel, we shall soon find the way. But they did not find it. They walked the whole night, and all the next day too, from morning till evening. But they did not get out of the forest, and were very hungry, for they had nothing to eat but 2 or 3 berries which grew on the ground. And as they were so weary of their legs would carry them no longer, they lay down beneath the tree and fell asleep. It was now 3 mornings since they had left their father's house. They began to walk again, but they always got deeper into the forest, and if help did not come soon, they would die of hunger and weariness. When it was midday, they saw a beautiful snow-white bird sitting on a bough, which sang so delightfully that they stood still and listened to it. And when it had finished its song, it spread its wings and flew away before them, and they followed it until it reached a little house, on the roof of which it alighted. It alighted? And when they came quite up to the little house, they saw that it was built of bread and covered with cakes, but that the windows were of clear sugar. We will set to work on, said Hansel, and I have a good meal, and have a good meal. I will eat a bit of the roof, and you, Gretel, can eat some of the window. It will taste sweet. Hansel reached up above, broke off a little of the roof to try how it tasted, and Gretel leaned against the window and nibbled at the pane. Then a soft voice cried from the room, nibble, nibble. Who is nibbling at my little house? Children answered, the wind, the wind, the heaven-born wind, and went on eating without disturbing themselves. Hansel, who thought the roof tasted very nice, tore down a great piece of it, and Gretel pushed out the whole of one round window pane, sat down and enjoyed herself with it. Suddenly the door opened, and a very, very old woman, who supported herself on crutches, came creeping out. Hansel and Gretel were so terribly frightened that they let fall what they had in their hands. The old woman, however, nodded her head and said, oh, you dear children, who has brought you here? Do come in and stay with me. No harm shall happen to you. She took them both by the hand and led them into her little house. Then good food was set before them, milk and pancakes, with sugar, apples, and nuts. Afterwards, 2 pretty little beds were covered with clean white linen, and Hansel and Gretel lay down in them and thought they were in heaven. The old woman had only pretended to be so kind. She was in reality a wicked witch who lay in wait for children, and had only built the little house of bread in order to entice them there. When the child fell into her power, She killed it, cooked and ate it, and that was a feast day with her. Witches have red eyes and cannot see far, but they have a keen set like beasts and are aware when human beings draw near. When Hansel and Gretel came into her neighborhood, she laughed maliciously and said mockingly, I have them. They shall not escape me again. Early in the morning, before the children were awake, she was already up, and when she saw both of them sleeping and looking so pretty, with their plump red cheeks, she muttered to herself, what will be a dainty mouthful? That will be a dainty mouthful. Then she seized Hansel with her shriveled hand and carried him into a little stable and shut him in with a grated door. He might scream as he likes. That was of no use. Then she went to Gretel, shook her till she awoke, and cried, get up, lazy thing, fetch some water and cook something good for your brother. He is in the stable outside, and is to be made fat. When he is fat, I will eat him. Gretel began to weep bitterly, but it was all in vain. She was forced to do what the wicked witch had ordered. And now the best food was cooked for poor Hansel, but Gretel got nothing but crab shells. Every morning the woman crept to the little stable and cried, Hansel, stretch out your finger that I may feel it, if you will soon be fat. Hansel, however, stretched out a little bone to her. The old woman, who had dim eyes, could not see it, and thought it was Hansel's finger, and was astonished that there was no way of fattening him. When 4 weeks had gone by, and Hansel still stayed thin, she was seized with impatience, and would not wait any longer. Now, Gretel, she cried to the girl, be active and bring some water. Let Hansel be fat or lean. Tomorrow I will kill him and cook him. Ah, how the poor little sister did lament when she had to fetch the water, and how her tears did flow down over her cheeks. Dear God, do help us, she cried. If the wild beasts in the forest had devoured us, at least we should have died together. Just keep your nose to yourself, said the old woman. All that won't help you at all. Early in the morning, Gretel had to go out and hang up the cauldron with the water and light the fire. We will bake first, said the old woman. I have already heated the oven and kneaded the dough. She pushed poor Gretel out to the oven, from which flames of fire were already darting. Creep in, said the witch, and see if it is properly heated, so that we can shut the bread in. And once Gretel was inside, she intended to shut the oven and let her bake in it, and then she would eat her too. But Gretel saw what she had in her mind, and said, I do not know how I am to do it. How do you get in? Silly goose, said the old woman, the door is big enough, just look. I can get in it myself. And she crept up and thrust her head into the oven. Then Gretel gave her a push and drove her far into it, and shut the iron door and fastened the bolt. Oh, then she began to howl quite horribly, but Gretel ran away, and the godless witch was miserably burnt to death. Gretel, however, ran like lightning to Hansel, opened his little stable, and cried, Hansel, we are saved! The old witch is dead. Then Hansel sprang out like a bird from its cage when the doors opened for it. How they did rejoice and embrace each other, to dance about and kiss each other, and as they had no longer any need to fear her, they went into the witch's house, and in every corner there stood chests full of pearls and jewels. These are far better than pebbles, said Hansel, and thrust into his pocket whatever could be got in. And Gretel said, I too will take something home with me, and filled her pinafore full. But now we will go away, said Hansel, that we may get out of the witch's forest. When they had walked for 2 hours, they came to a great body of water. We cannot get over, said Hansel. I see no foot plank, and no bridge, and no boat crosses either, answered Gretel. But A white duck is swimming there. If I ask her, she will help us over." Then she cried, little duck, do you see? Hansel and Gretel are waiting for you. There's never a plank or a bridge in sight. Take us across on your back so white." The duck came to them, and Hansel seated himself on its back, and told his sister to sit by him. "No," replied Gretel, "that will be too heavy for the little duck. She shall take us across one after the other." The good little duck did so, and when they were safely across and had walked for a short time, the forest seemed to be more and more familiar to them, and at length they saw from afar their father's house. Then they began to run, rushed into the parlor, and threw themselves into their father's arms. The man had not known one happy hour since he had left the children in the forest, and the woman, however, was dead. Gretel emptied her pinafore until pearls and precious stones ran about in the room, and Hansel threw one handful of another out of his pocket to add to them. Then all anxiety was at an end, and they lived happily in perfect happiness. My tale is done. See the mouse run? Whoever catches it may make himself a big fur cap out of it. That concludes Hansel and Gretel. Great story. Good double feature tonight, you guys. Thank you to everybody that tuned in. If you're watching from Twitch, please make sure you hit that follow button and make sure the notifications are on. It'll let you know when I'm going live. If you like to know when I go live, I also have my socials posted right down below on my Twitch, somewhere down over here on the little X sign or Twitter sign. I usually post up on Twitter/X where when I'm going live. So look forward to that. Make sure that if you go follow that, it'll let you know when I'm going live next, which may be tomorrow. We'll see. If you're watching from YouTube, please hit the like, subscribe, comment. It helps with the algorithms quite a bit. And if you'd like to see any more stuff, please comment. Let me know. I also have an email posted on my Twitter that is for strictly only streams. I don't use it for anything else, so you can contact me through there. It's in my bio. Thank you, everybody. And as always, my proper send off, don't be a stranger. Bye. I got a movie to go catch, so later.